Are you living with purpose, passion, and making a difference in your life's journey? Well, you've come to the right place. The X Factors to Success podcast radio show.
Great day to you all, and welcome to the X Factors to Success podcast radio show. I am your host, Ruggero Fratarcangeli, also known as the G-Man. And today's guest is a super duper awesome person, an influencer, serving his purpose and making a difference in the world. But before we introduce you to our guest today, as a reminder, the X Factors to Success are 5 major pillars: faith, family and friends, fitness, finance, and fun. And I believe today our Dr. Jason Hill will talk about those elements of success and his journey, his tribulations, and also what he's pursuing to make a difference. So we have a Dr. Jason Hill today on our show. He is a professor of philosophy at DePaul University and the author of 3 previous books. These include Becoming a Cosmopolitan, What It Means to Be a Human Being in the New Millennium, Civil Disobedience, and the Politics of Identity, When We Should Not Get Along. And also a current book that just recently released, that's right, which we're going to hear about, We Have Overcome. It's an immigrant's letter to the American people. He's also president and CEO of the Institute for Immigrant Assimilation. He holds a Ph.D. in philosophy and has been a professional writer and book author for over 30 years. He is a specialist in ethics and American politics and has been published in major magazines including the Federalist, Commentary Magazine, Spike Magazine, and Salon Magazine. He has lectured and taught extensively on the subject in the United States, Europe, and Asia. From 2010 to 2012, a consortium of 4 universities in England held a series of conferences devoted to Dr. Hill's post-human cosmopolitanism and adopted the moral vision contained therein as part of their mission statements. His scholarly articles have been published in anthologies and journals in Germany, the Czech Republic, and the Netherlands. In addition, he has written for various magazines and newspapers in which he has brought the tenets of cosmopolitanism to a wide audience. He has been interviewed regularly in various media outlets, from NBCs Today show, the Daily Caller show, to Wisconsin, Chicago, Toronto, Atlanta, San Francisco, and New York Public Radio. He is deeply committed to moral foundationalism, moral universalism, and the absolutism of reason. Jason came to the United States at the age of 20 from Jamaica and has thrived beyond his wildest dreams. He remains incredibly grateful to his country for its bountiful opportunities. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest, your guest, Dr. Jason Hill. Dr. Jason Hill, how are you today? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm grateful to be on your show.
Thank you so much for taking your busy time. I know that you're just doing great things out there. You're on different shows. I've been watching you and listening to your great journey and influence and your zest for life in this wonderful country of ours, the United States of America. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Jason Hill, can I call you Jason? Is that okay with you?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Doctor is only for my students.
Oh, beautiful. Well, as I mentioned in the X Factors 5 key pillars, I believe by reading your bio and extensive bio of great accomplishments that you fulfill a great purpose and need. And this show talks about success, and you sure exude success. And the question I'd like to ask you for all my guests who come to the show is, Jason, what is your definition of success?
Well, I have 2 basic ways of defining success. One is in the professional realm, and one is in the moral realm. I think the first meaning of success for me is the extent to which I have remained true to the principles and the core convictions that I have forged in my character. So the extent to which I can navigate my way through life and remain true to those principles, not compromise those principles. Sometimes in life we have to make concessions, but never to compromise the core fundamental principles and the values that guide my life. If I can do that, and I can wake up every morning and I can look myself in the mirror and I can say I have lived my life according to the constitutive core principles and values that guide my character and my life, then no matter how many professional or personal setbacks I might have had, I'm living a very, very successful life. And then in the professional realm, I think when one sets a set of goals for one's life, whether it's modest or it's ambitious, and you devise a strategy, a methodology for getting there, whether it's a 5-year plan, a 2-year plan, and you get there incrementally. Success for me means realizing in a specific time frame the realization of those goals that you have set. In whatever scope, in whatever manner, it means knowing what your goals are, knowing why you have those goals, knowing the purpose that they serve in your life, and understanding the fulfillment that they bring to your life. When you've achieved all of those in your life, I think you've achieved some semblance of success in your life.
That's very deep, Dr. Jason Hill. I mean, that's a wonderful, deep explanation. And again, you keep key things here, principles and values.
That's right.
And we're giving the opportunity to exercise the principles and values. And we pursue what our passions are. I use a quote, live with purpose, passion, and make a difference.
Yes.
And I know that you came to this country at 20 years old, as I read about you, and you came here with a dream.
That's right.
But I'm sure your family had instilled principles and values in you as you set foot land in the United States. Can you talk more about about your early journey that led you to where you are right now?
Well, I came from a middle-class background in Jamaica. I came to America with $120 in my pocket with my mom and my grandmother. My mother thought I was way too young to come, so she wanted to provide moral support. But there are core principles that my mother taught us, my brother and myself, when we were growing up. And one was that the world owes you nothing. You don't come into this world with a sense of entitlement, and everything that you achieve in this world is something that you have to earn for yourself. That good things will happen, bad things will happen to good people, and bad things will happen to bad people. But the cultivation of your moral goodness will always be the source of healing from which you recover from the inevitable bad things that will happen to you in your life. And another core principle that I learned from my family, especially from my mother, is that grit, tenacity, resilience, and perseverance are the key virtues for achieving anything that you want in this life. Never expect a handout from anyone. Never have a sense of yourself as being a victim. And this sense of victimology and entitlement are the worst impediments to achieving success, because with those two, I call them vices, you set yourself up for failure because you put yourself at the mercy of other people and you allow other people to expropriate your agency, and you never get a chance to exercise your own creative initiative. You never discover the power of your own creative talents that you can suffuse the world with. So those, when I set foot in America, those were some powerful values and principles that I put to work immediately when I had the task of working up to 3 jobs, 45 hours a week to put myself through school before I won a scholarship to do my Ph.D.
Sure. I could relate to that because I too, Jason, came here as a little boy off the boat on the Hudson River in New York from Italy. And again, I'm so honored and proud to be in this country of America. My father said, you come to this country, you're going to work, you're going to respect the elders, respect the law, respect the opportunity to build what you need to build. And I love the word you use, grit, tenacity.
Yes.
And don't expect the entitlement. Go ahead and work for it. You work 2-3 jobs. I too, as a young child, living in the Bronx, not the easiest place to live, but I grew up in a very ethical neighborhood, Italians and multicultural, and here I am today. And this show is a reason of my purpose is to invite guests like yourself to be on the show to share your journey. And I love the fact that you keyed into a very significant principle that I use in my teachings, in my workshops, taking 100% responsibility for your life and results.
That's right.
We cannot blame the outside world. We cannot blame the government. We cannot blame the taxes and the boss, the manager, the weather. We have to really take in alignment as far as purpose, what you're gifted with, and then go out there and make a better life for yourself, but also for your fellow citizens as well. And we cannot blame. Unfortunate. No, I myself also had to pick up my bootstraps and go. Into the studies, and here we are today. So.
I tell my students all the time, not everything that happens to you is your fault, but everything that happens to you is your responsibility.
I love it. Amen. Jason, beautiful. Thank you very much for that great tenacity. And again, principle of value. So what's keeping you motivated now? What's your motivating factor right now? I mean, you have a new book that you just recently released a couple of weeks ago, in which we're going to talk about your new book.
Yes.
But what motivates you now? What's your driving force now? You get up in the morning and you're out and about. I know you have students. You're a professor at DePaul University, as I indicated.
Yes.
So what's your biggest motivating factor?
My motivating factor, I have a couple of things that motivate me in the world. One is I have a strong love for humanity that is very visceral. I can't explain it any more than I can explain why I like certain types of food or music. And I have a strong sense. I'm a philosopher by training, and I have a strong sense to discover the truth in the world. I believe in objective truth. I'm not a cultural relativist. I'm not someone who thinks that truth is arbitrary. I do think that there are truths, there are moral truths in the world. And I like to discover those truths and to communicate them to people. I'm a creative person by nature. So I have a strong sense. I also have a strong sense to repair the world, to leave the world a better place than I wake up each morning finding it. And what motivates me is to write, to create order in the chaos that I find quite often in the world, to create a stylized sense of order, and to communicate that order in the world, to give hope to people. I'm a hopeless optimist by heart. I'm not a pessimist. I think the whole world could be disintegrating, and so what motivates me is hope. I'm a very hopeful person, and I like to communicate that sense of hope, that sense of regeneration, that we all have the power to suffuse the world with an original semblance of who we are, that we as individuals carry a great deal of power inside of us, and that power that I find myself possessing, that power of conviction, that power, that passion to make the world a better place, what motivates me. And that informs my work. It's teaching my beloved students, whom I'm passionately in love with as young people, to write an article, to write my books. It's a passion to really make this world that I'm profoundly in love with. And the human species, that I think is an unprecedented phenomenon, God's greatest creation. Those are the things that motivate me I'm filled with a sense of vitality and passion. And I just wake up every morning wanting to just suffuse the world with that passion and that vitality,
I love it. I could just I just feel the energy right now on this call right now, on this Zoom call. And because you are coming across such a passionate individual, and listening to you right now, it reminds me that we need to have more of you out there. You are our gift. You're a gift to the world. And who's ever listening right now, folks, if you're out there in the car driving from home to work, work to home, tune in, listen, stop, maybe, take notes, and really reflect what Dr. Jason Hill's doing and what he's saying. Because it is important to really reflect upon your gifts that you're giving and moving forward and serve a purpose. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you very much for that. I mentioned in your bio, you spent some time doing some work out in England in the consortium. Can you tell us more about that, if you don't mind?
Right. So my first book was before I wrote this new book, We Have Overcome, an Immigrant's Letter to the American People. I wrote a number of books before on cosmopolitanism, which has to do with love of humanity, being a citizen of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And these set of books, these three books, which comprise a trilogy of books, had to do with how to transcend ethnicity, race, and nationality, not to dispense with your tribal or your origins, but how to transcend them, how to form kinships with people outside of your racial ethnic backgrounds, and how to reach to people who are outside of your kin groups, and in some sense to make the world a better place, because we are one race. We belong to the human race.
Sure.
And so I gave a series of talks in England, and they were really, really inspired by this vision of making the world a better place by transcending ethnicity, by transcending race, by transcending nationality, and finding the common core principles that unite us all as human beings, abstracting from all the differences that make us, or give us our unique identities as Italians, as Caribbeans, as Croatians,
yes,
as Germans, as Africans, and asking the question, well, what are the core universal principles? And that's what my work in cosmopolitanism aspires to do. What are those core principles, and how can we get beyond the differences and find those core principles and start having a conversation that can unite us as human beings?
I love it. Well, truly amazing. I will make it a point to pick up your earlier books as well. So since we're on this track here, can you please, let's talk about your newest book.
I have a new book called We Have Overcome, an Immigrant's Letter to the American People. And it is a love letter to the American people. It is, I wrote that book for a number of reasons. I think we live in an age of Americophobia, where there is a great deal of venom and anti-Americanism that is floating around in our culture. And I got very, very tired of hearing from a lot of writers spewing invectives against this great country, this great republic of ours, that I think is an unprecedented phenomenon, the greatest country, the most moral country, I think, on the face of the earth. And I decided to write this book. I wrote an article in Commentary magazine that went viral, and a New York publisher, Simon Schuster, an imprint, Bombardier Books, contacted me and said, can you write a book based on the article? And so the first part of the book spells out what makes America and her treasure troves, the American people, an exceptional country and an exceptional people. So I talk about the moral meaning of America and what makes this country great. And then I tell the story of immigrants to flesh out what makes this country great. I tell the story of immigrants, people who came to this country, whom I have met, who couldn't speak a word of English, impoverished Vietnamese peasants, semi-illiterate people who through tenacity, perseverance, grit, honor, with no help from the government, pulled themselves up and made something remarkable of their lives. And I tell their personal stories. And then I go on to tell how I went on to, achieve my dreams. I came with $120 in my pocket. It didn't matter that I came from a middle-class family. I had to start from scratch.
Right.
And I tell my story, how I achieved my goals. So there's a formula. The book also, We Have Overcome, is a formula for success. It tells your readers how in this great country you can set certain goals, a methodology for setting those goals. I always had a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And I always had a methodology, a method for achieving those goals. And that's all in the book, that any goal you set, however modest, however ambitious, my goals were always ambitious,
That's right. You have to set the bar higher, shoot for the moon and eventually you end upon the stars, right?
Exactly. and I tell the readers exactly how at 20 years old, I had predicted, without a college degree, I had predicted the day I was going to graduate with my Ph.D.
Amazing.
Didn't even have a college degree, but at 20, floating in the sky on that plane before we even touched down, I had already mapped out when I was going to graduate from college, when I was going to get my PhD, and when my first book was going to be published. It was all worked out in my head.
So, Jason, if I may interrupt here, you're talking about goal setting, affirmation, visualization. These are also processes where you have a strong belief, a foundation of faith that you're able to achieve, okay?
Yes.
And really put in alignment. Whatever comes forth in your pathway, you know that you have a laser-focused goal that you need to achieve in order to get to your journey and to get your destination.
Right.
So
that's right.
Have you used those processes and techniques also in your...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have a visualization process. And I must say that, that visualization process works tremendously because it allows you to, in some sense, materialize and seek out the very concrete specifics that you need in this world to manifest the visuals. The visuals are just not sufficient. You've got to then seek out the concretes to give life to the abstractions, because the visuals are just an abstraction. They're motivating, they keep you alive, they keep you going. But you've got to understand what your goals are, why you have them. They can't be the goals of other people. You can't compare yourself to other people. They have to be goals that correspond to your values, correspond to your disposition, to your sensibilities, to your talents. And they have to come from a core sense of who you are as a person.
Agreed. There is a book, an author, a speaker that I listen to, Simon Sinek. And one of his books is, What is Your Why? When you identify what is your why, your purpose becomes even more of a driving force to accomplish the goals you need to accomplish, but for a greater purpose, for the humanity. And he too also sounds very much in the same message that you're giving it right now. That I myself also, I have my goals in electronic form, index form, and whatever form. But it's a process. I know that I have my major purpose. My life purpose is to inspire and energize others to identify their potential to achieve their dreams, passions, find inner joy and peace in their life's journey. And this is the podcast. This is my conduit. This podcast show is just exactly that, to bring guests like yourself that have a purpose and sharing that to the world. So any further insight on pursuing goals and dreams, since we're on this topic here?
I think one has to pace oneself, and I think one has to give oneself permission to fail. And there's no greater country on the face of the earth than America that gives you a chance to recoup from your failures. You can't be afraid of failure. So you have to pace yourself. You have to be passionate, and you have to be very disciplined and focused, but one cannot be too extreme in the pursuit of either goodness or the pursuit of one's goals. And one has to be prepared to fail and to learn from those failures. I have failed a couple of times in the pursuit of my goals, and I've learned from those failures. I've known exactly why I failed, what went wrong in the process. I learned not to blame other people for my failures.
There you go.
To take a sense of accountability, to learn the lessons, and to realize that every failure was a learning experience. See, I don't configure my life. I take it back. I don't configure my life in which failure is.
Well, it's part of the learning process. It's part of the.
It's part of the learning process. It's just that
Thomas Edison. How many times did he fail to accomplish his goal? Over 10,000 times, right? And finally, we are enjoying what? We are enjoying light. We are enjoying electricity. All this has come by people who have persevered, who had tenacity to move forward. Even this technology over right now, you and I are somewhere maybe 1,000 miles away.
Yes.
And we're conducting this interview via Zoom. And it's amazing audio. And I appreciate it. And I am grateful for that. And so these mistakes and whatever, again, I hate to use mistakes, but failures, like you said, is a part of the learning process. It's a journey. And there's an acronym that I use all the time, FEAR, false events appearing real.
Yes.
But unfortunately, our society today, and if you correct me if I'm wrong, our young millennials, and I know it's a genre right now that people are like, what are the millennials? What do they do? And why they're not, why not? They seem, for me at least, they are different from the baby boomers.
Yes.
From Generation X and Y. So you're a professor. In your experience, are they experiencing fear to come into the world of the purpose?
Well, they don't have a sense of the long range that I think people of my generation had. I think their range of vision is much shorter. It's a lot shorter. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we live in a society in which a protracted sense of or the future is shrinking, or sense of the future is shrinking. And so
this is my thoughts. It seems like it's by design, by our direction of politics. And again, I'm for anyone out there listening up, also, it's not about politics, but again, it's about the humanity, about purpose, and about also our principles of the country, of the United States, why the immigrants came to this country. So
yes, I think also, Ruggero, it takes a community, a milieu in which to foster your vision. And I was very fortunate, having been raised in Jamaica, to come from a very strong community. I had a family, I had an extended family. Your vision was nurtured, even though my mom didn't want me to be a writer. She thought I was going to be poor. But she sent me to the best private school. And once I made it very clear I wanted to be a writer and a philosopher, she said, if that's your dream, then she plied me with books. She plied me with private lessons to make sure that, she said, well, if you're going to be a writer, you're going to be the best writer possible.
Amazing.
We're seeing in America a shrinking, where communities are becoming obsolete, where students don't have that supportive milieu in which they're ensconced to develop their vision. And so with the shrinking of communities, with most of their socialization taking place on social media, the sense of connectedness and the sense of support that one needs among or with one's peers is absent. I think we're suffering from an epidemic of loneliness. And I was just reading a study recently. I thought it would be people, older people, but the loneliest group of people these studies are showing are individuals within the 18 to 24 year bracket.
True that, and you see what's happening out there with the depression.
Yes.
Youngsters also, not being part of the community, they go ahead and commit an act of violence and hurt themselves, but more importantly, hurt their community, their fellow citizens. And my thought is the lack of guidance, which stems from the foundation of family. And that's why part of the X factors to success is to have a foundational family. These 18 to 24-year-olds, they say, well, you're lucky. They'll say to you, Dr. Jason Hill, well, you're lucky. You were fortunate. Do you think that just luck has just appeared to you?
I think luck plays some semblance of a role in everyone's life, but I think no. I believe, I'm a philosopher. I believe in what Socrates says, that character is destiny.
I love it. And also, unexamined life is not worth living. Right?
Not worth living, right? I think your values and your core principles and your convictions are the attributes that basically shape your life, because those are the attributes that allow you to make fundamental choices in the world. And those choices are the phenomena that guide your actions and the judgments that you make. And a combination of those choices, those actions, those judgments on a day-to-day basis are what really give shape and structure to your life. So I think, yes, there's an element of luck and right timing and right place and chance. But most of us who succeed over the long haul are not carried by luck or carried by those luck doesn't sustain you over a 30-year period.
Correct.
Right.
I agree
right?
with that.
So it's just it's everyone has a little bit of luck that helps along the way, but it's more than just luck. It's the formation of a certain, and I like to use I'm an ethicist by training and a political theorist.
Okay.
So I can't get away. I can't.
I can see
I can never get away from the talk about the cultivation of a moral character.
Go right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead. Go right ahead. Go ahead. Continue on.
An ethical character that allows you, that gives you the ammunition and the fuel to get through the adversities in life. That has nothing to do with luck. That has to do with volition, the exercise of your God-given free will. God gives us free will, and we can sabotage that free will that He has given us, or we can exercise that free will in the service of our life, which I think He wants us to exercise for our flourishing, for our well-being. So when people say, "Oh, you're just lucky," I said, "Yes, I've had a little bit of luck, but it's mostly to do with
taking action, taking responsibility.
Taking responsibility." Yes.
You know, like right now, I would say, am I lucky to have you on my show? Well, because I am friends with, and I'm sure Mr. Carl Miller will be listening in on this podcast, and we'll give you a shout out, Carl, because of our friendship with Carl and his principles and values that we share alike as well. And similar to you, he said, "Hey, you know what? I think a friend here, Dr. Jason Hill, would be a perfect guest on your show." And I said, "I would love it." He gave me a little bit brief overview. I looked you up. I said, "Absolutely." And I said to myself, this is because I'm in alignment with my life purpose.
That's right.
And I'm attracting, again, there's an author who passed away, and teacher, Jim Rohn, and it said, I've heard it many times over, and on this show I say it all the time, we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Look around you. And look around, I ask even my children, my 4 children, who you hang out with, you become the average of those individuals. And there are 3 subgroups for that. There's your family, there's your friends, and there's also your professional field. And the 3 subgroups give you also that notion as far as how do you act, how do you respond to certain areas of activities. And again, we become the average. If you spend time with individuals who are positive minded, who cherish to live with free will, with tenacity, and with grit, right? You become it as well. So
that's right.
I'm in total awe right now because you speaking some great value right now for our audience to listen in. And there might be some audience out there and saying, well, you know what? I don't believe in that. So if you see, folks, Jason Hill here has accomplished since 20 years old, came to this country, $120 in his pocket, parents, family, principles and values, and here he is right now, a professor, an author, a writer. It's not luck, folks. He took an action. No. So awesome. Great insight there, Dr. Jason Hill. I'm sure during your trial and tribulations, you had some role models. Would you share with the audience 1 or 2 role models that you had in this journey of yours so far, and why?
It's really hard to speak about role models because my role models really were inconspicuous figures. They were teachers, mostly high school teachers that I had, who are not public figures. So I don't really have role models who are public figures who are well known.
I'm the same way also as well. Then there might be public figures, but there are role models that I've had myself.
So I can just recall college professors or high school teachers who recognize a talent and gave me a book to read and said, "This will change your life," or encouraged me to hone a skill. My mother, who was quite often a difficult mother, but spotted a talent and would write out 7 words or up to 20 words when I was 8 or 9 years old in the dictionary every day.
Yeah.
During my summer holidays, and she was a banker, she was an accountant, and she would call me from work and she would say, "Did you look the 7 words up?" She says, "I don't want you looking in the dictionary or on a piece of paper, but you tell me what the meaning of those words are." They were big words.
We call those SAT words out there, right?
SAT words, right. So there have just been ordinary people who have had extraordinary convictions in their lives, who've inspired me along the way. Most of them have been teachers who have really, I think, when you think about what teachers earn and what they give, they have really opened up my vocational calling to be a teacher and to be a writer and to be a disseminator of knowledge. It's their passion that has really, really inspired me, and their willingness to give of themselves for a larger, something much larger than themselves. And that's how I configure my life. I have my personal goals, but I see myself in some sense as, I don't want to sound lofty and say I'm doing God's work. I would just say I see myself as doing some small...
The universal work that's putting you in the trajectory of making a difference.
Making the world a better place, repairing the world. Yeah.
There is a page, the first page is on your book that says, in quote, I'm quoting you here, I guess you were here, to the American people in the name of the best within you.
Yes.
And I think that's deep down in your message also, making people see and find their purpose moving forward, being the best version of themselves.
Yeah, the book is dedicated to the American people in the name of the best within you. That is to never sink to the lowest common denominator within yourself. And also, more importantly, to never ever base your judgment on humanity based on the lowest common denominator that you find within other people. See, I'm sort of like a hero worshiper, or I am always trying to find the highest common denominator within the individual, and to encourage people to aspire towards that. And I think one of the great things about America is that it's an aspirational country, and people have aspirational identities that are based on not the lowest, but the best within the individual. And America appeals to that.
Super. And you hit a key word. I wrote down my little notes here. Your vocation. When people find their vocation, again, not their job, but their purpose, vocation. And that's where it goes deep, saying, you're serving a deeper purpose. Or it could be anything that you're doing. Like you said, teachers are not really recognized. I think also in this country, they're not really recognized as influencers, or they are in certain ways. We could go two different directions there. But I know in Europe, going back and forth to Italy, when you call a professore, dottore, doctor, and again, it's very highly respected. And when you're a doctor like yourself, Dr. Jason Hill, that's why I asked you earlier, I call you doctor, and you said, well, your students call you doctor. But truthfully, you have to honor the time, involvement, and the studies and the work ethics that you put in to get where you are right now.
And I think your vocation, I think, really is tied to what brings vitality to your body. I have to tell you a story where I got into 25 law schools, and I tore up all the acceptance letters, because I knew that the thing that was bringing vitality to my soul and my spirit was studying philosophy and writing. And I tell my students all the time, I say, when they come into my office and they're pursuing a degree in finance, but they really want to be an artist, or they're doing something other than I say to them, what is it that brings vitality to your body? Listen to the signals of your body. Not exclusively, because sometimes the body can get us into trouble, but listen to what your heart, your mind, and your body are all telling you, and what brings because the thing that brings vitality to your body is a signal that is what you should be at least exploring in the world. That's a sure sign that you're on the right track.
So there are statistics out there, Jason, that they say that 80% of students who come out of college or university are not truly what they really want to do.
Yes.
They end up with other faculties in place, and the 20 percentile is truly what they really love and passion. Because a lot of times they're influenced by whom? By maybe their parents, that got him right. You have to be a doctor. You got to be a lawyer. You got to be an accountant because they project what? It's the financial success. It's the right key to success to achieve in abundance right away. But I'm also I believe it. That's not true. Even myself, I fall into it too. My parents said, go in computers, go into this and that. No, I went into business, international business, and psychology. I minored in psychology in my studies. Well, this is great. So Jason, we have a few more questions before we say farewell. But this has been an awesome time spending, and you are providing some serious insights. And I'm looking forward for my audience to check in with you and hear more about what you're doing and what you'll be doing in the future. But I want to ask you a few more questions here. Is there one particular book that you were inspired by?
Well, there's a book. The philosopher Ayn Rand was someone who inspired me when I was young. She wrote a book called Atlas Shrugged.
Yes, indeed.
Which was a great novel. It's a long novel. But in that book, she really gave a moral defense of capitalism and free enterprise, which I think is crucial for people to understand that our free enterprise system is not just a system that benefits us economically, that there's a moral basis for the free enterprise system. She also creates these amazing characters who are self-actualizing creatures who believe in their creative talents and against great odds accomplish greatness. And it's a paying hymn to the nobility of achievement and the creative spirit in the pursuit of one's dreams and one's goal. It's a very American novel. She also wrote The Fountainhead. So that's one novel that really did. That's one book that really did inspire me tremendously.
Okay. And folks, I'll put these recommendations in the show notes, folks. So when you get a chance, look at the show notes, so look up and follow some of the recommendations by Dr. Jason Hill. So
and Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher, the Meditations is a wonderful book. It's just his aphorisms, his musings, just soul calming. It calms the soul.
Are there other books you want to recommend?
I like. There's an author by the name of Camille Paglia. She's written an interesting book called Sexual Personae, which is art and decadence from Nefertiti to Emily Dickinson. It's just an amazing book about the history of literature and art, a broad panoply of Western art and Western civilization. I'm a great fan of Western civilization because I think our core principles really are coming from the Western tradition that foundationalized America. There's a book also called Civilization by Kenneth Clark, who is a great art critic that I love tremendously. There's so many books I could think of.
Well, you're giving us some good insight there, so I'll put these in the show notes for those who are interested. Beautiful. Well, thank you for.
There's a book also called How Capitalism Saved America by Thomas DiLorenzo.
Oh yeah.
Thomas DiLorenzo. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. How Capitalism Saved America. Mm-hmm. I think in an age where free enterprise has a really a bad name in America, it's becoming increasingly so. People need to understand that it's in our DNA. The free enterprise system. And this is something I tell also in my book, We Have Overcome, how capitalism has worked for immigrants.
Yes, indeed. I'm a perfect, we're perfect examples of it. My father, who passed away about 5 years ago, he always wore American flag, and I have an American flag in front of my house at all times, lit and respecting the stripes and stars there. The reason why we're in this country is, and I have 4 beautiful children, healthy children with a beautiful wife that's supporting me in what I'm doing and inspiring. And of course, my brand, X Factors to Success, and to teach and to inspire, to empower people to find their dreams and passions. And it's given me this opportunity to be freedom of podcasting and having a show and having people like yourself on the show here. So totally in agreement, in synchronization. We're synchronizing, Dr. Jason Hill. I love it. this question here, I ask every guest because I had been asked this question years ago. And this question is as follows. If you were conducting this interview, what one question would you ask yourself and why?
I guess the question I would ask myself is, through all the adversities and all the disappointments, how have I escaped not becoming a bitter person in life? And it's a complicated question, but I will give an uncomplicated answer.
Go ahead, we're listening.
And one is, I started out as a religious person, then became an evangelical atheist, and I had recovered my spiritual life. I'm not an atheist anymore.
Okay.
I've developed, I've started to recover my faith and develop a strong relationship, recover a prayer life and develop a relationship to God. And I think that really, really helps to develop some, I'm not going to proselytize here, but develop some form of a spiritual life that helps you to appeal to a meaning and a purpose outside of yourself is something that helps you to escape bitterness. Yeah. The other thing is realizing that in the larger picture of the world, that suffering is an inescapable aspect of human existence, and that no one is immune from suffering. No one is immune from adversity. So when it afflicts you, do not try to think that you're so special that you can exempt yourself from the rest of humanity. That is hubris, and that's arrogance. Adopt a humble spirit, count your blessings, and simply move on.
Amen. I like that, because the number one X factors to success, as I mentioned earlier in the beginning, is faith.
Yeah.
Faith is the foundation. I, too, turned around about last 15 years ago in alignment to more of a spiritual balance and bringing God, yes, universe, energy in my foundation of my purpose. And again, driving force to make a difference in this journey of mine, myself. Yes. And I see that we're on the same trajectory, and maybe on a different road, but same trajectory going forward, upward forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important.
Great. I say
two mantras every morning. Thank you, God, for my life, and thank you for my existence here on earth. No matter what a dumpy day I'm having.
No, and you know what? The act of being grateful, and again, the attitude of gratitude. So, Dr. Jason Hill, what legacy or imprint to the world would you leave behind? Let's say it's 100 years from now, and all your books that you've written, all the articles and the paper at the Hill and everything that you've been through, what would you leave behind? And someone picks up something, hey, Dr. Jason Hill, what legacy or imprint would you leave behind?
I think I would like people to remember that I had a fiery intellect, but a very gentle soul. But the legacy I want to leave behind is someone who was really passionately in love with humanity. Someone who loved the human species, that had seen the worst of the human species and the best, and never ever lost hope in humanity. And in all his works, in all his writings, in every gesture that he made in the world, was always with the hope of working on behalf of humanity.
Beautiful.
That's a legacy that I want to be
remembered for. Passionate with humanity. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, Doctor, where can the audience find you? Tell us where. On social media, website, tell us, give it to us.
So I'm on Twitter at Jason D. Hill 6 on Twitter. And they can find me on Facebook at Dr. Jason D. Hill 1913. On Facebook, Dr. Jason D. Hill, 1913. And on Twitter, I have a large Twitter following at Jason D. Hill 6. I don't have Instagram, so I'm just on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay.
And I have a website also where they can see my media activity. It's just www.jasondamianhill.com. It's my middle name, Damien. So www.jasondamianhill.com.
Okay. I'll put all those on the show notes for our audience to link with that and to get to you. And I'm sure if they correspond with you, you'll respond back and give them some insights and more communications.
Sure.
Those who are interested. Awesome.
Yeah.
So before we say farewell, any last comments or inspiring encouragements you'd like to leave? Final words.
Yeah, I want to say to my fellow compatriots that, never give up hope on this great country of ours. I mean, we live in an era in which, in the last couple of years, it's become really, really fashionable to dump on America and to be an apologist for American greatness and American exceptionalism. And I would say to my aspiring Americans, my fellow Americans, to be proud of this country and to continue to use the best within yourself to make this country a continued great country. It's so easy to lapse into cynicism. It's so easy to lapse into despair. It's so easy to lapse into, how can I make a difference? But to just wake up every morning and to take, as I said, the book is dedicated to the American people, in the name of the best within you, to take the best that resides within you and to apply that to the world each day, whether that's offering a smile to a stranger, whether that's offering kindness and warmth to someone in need, whether that's offering the passion of your business vocation, whatever you think is the best within you, to apply that to the world, and you leave the world a changed place and a magical place, and you leave this country an amazing place the next day.
Wow. Fantastic. You heard that, folks. Grit, tenacity, honor. Again, be passionate and pursue your dreams. And Dr. Jason Hill, I am so honored and pleasure to have you on the show. We want to thank you so much for spending time with us and giving us some deep insights of your journey and what's ahead of you in the future. And I look forward to complete reading your current book. Again, we have Overcome, an immigrant's letter to the American people. So folks out there, grab this book here. Go to, I'm sure, on Amazon and
Barnes and Noble.
You
can get some other bookstores too. Yeah.
There you go. So go get your copy. If you want to send an email out to Jason, go out ahead, do that, and really share this interview. Share this podcast, folks. Those of you out there, yes, right. I'm telling you right now. Stop. Go ahead. Press share. Rate. Review. Okay. And maybe someone in your life, maybe someone in your family like to hear the story. But again, we're all immigrants to this country, and we want to protect it, serve it, and even those men and women who have served will continue to serve for the freedom and liberty, and for us to pursue our X factors to success. So without further ado, once again, Dr. Jason, I thank you so much. Many blessings to you.
Thank you, and same to you.
Much continued success. I look forward to meet you in person one day.
That'll happen.
Okay, and also possibly to have you on a conference that looking to put together in 2019. Maybe have you as a keynote speaker. Again, many things can happen. You see how our roads connect, right? So
okay.
So, folks, you've been listening to the X Factors to Success podcast show with Dr. Jason Hill.
Live with purpose, passion, and make a difference every day.